It's officially decommitment season, and we've already seen some big name prospects in recent days reopen their recruitments and put themselves back on the market. So on this video, I got On3's Director of Recruiting, Chad Simmons, on. We're going to talk about some of the biggest names that are back on the market. But before we get into it, guys, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we want you to be a part of it. So jump on board, hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on Chad Simmons. And Chad, where do we start? There's been a bunch of big decommitments since the season started. Let's talk about one of the most recent ones, which happened over the weekend. Offensive tackle Mario Nash Jr. announces his decommitment, and maybe the timing of it could give us some clues on who he's considering. But this weekend, Mario Nash took an official visit to FSU, and about 24 hours after that visit ended, he decommitted. So, Chad, just looking at this Mario Nash Jr. recruitment, who do you think the main teams involved are?
Yeah, I don't think we were shocked by this decommitment. Josh, first off, he's taken visits, all fall from Ole Miss to Alabama to Florida State, tried to get to LSU, couldn't make it there earlier this year. We'll see if he gets back maybe later on this fall. But, I think obviously Florida State has to feel good about where they're at right now. Anytime a kid, decommits coming off that official visit, you have to obviously think that school and that visit made an impact on that decision. So I think, he's been there half a dozen times or more. He's very familiar with Tallahassee, Alex Atkins, Mike Norvell. So he's a chance to play early. So a lot of things about FSU have them, if not the team to beat, one of the teams to beat. I think FSU's biggest competition today is Ole Miss. He's been there for a game this season. He'll probably be back at least once, maybe twice later on this fall, talking about the Georgia game in Oxford later on, maybe one more trip as well. But that's an in-state school for him, close to home. He knows that coaching staff well, from John Garrison to Lane Kiffin to Coach Weiss, the OC. So he's comfortable there. I think those are the two to watch. He was at Alabama, still communicates with LSU. He's talked to Clemson. Mississippi State is not going to give up on him. But I think right now Florida State and Ole Miss are the two to watch for Mario Nash.
Yeah. And do you think any other teams could get involved? Because we don't see a lot of players at a premium position, like an offensive tackle, kind of reemerge like this. So do you think that other teams are going to try to kick the tires and get in on this one?
It probably couldn't hurt their chances, but I think he kind of goes back to his original list and kind of the people he feels good about, the relationships that he's had already built and established. But, you never know. But I would expect him to kind of pick a school from that initial list that he knows about that program, about that coaching staff.
All right, let's go to another premium player that reopened his recruitment. This was a little earlier in the season. Edge Javian Hilson, I believe it was like week 1 or 2, announced that he was decommitting from FSU. Now he's taken a visit to UCF. He's been to Texas previously. He's been back to FSU. So how do you view this recruitment of Edge Javian Hilson, who is really one of the best pass rushers in America that's still available?
Yeah, look, this kid's full of surprises. I watched him in the state championship game last year in December, had the Gator gear on. Next thing you know, at midnight, he's committing to Alabama. Then he comes out of nowhere and decommits, and then just up and, pretty quickly after, commits to Florida State, and obviously then changes his mind there and decommits. And he's, like you said, been to Florida State, he's been to Florida, this year already as well. And there was some buzz about Texas going back to the summer. And I think that's kind of, again, the smart money pick is the Texas Longhorns. He's supposed to be back maybe for the Georgia game here in about a week and a half or so. And there was talk he'd be there in September, couldn't make it. So will he make it to Austin later on this month? We'll wait and see. But, multiple schools are still in contact with him, including Alabama and some others. But I think right now Texas is probably the smart pick of who's trending. But look, he's been surprising us all throughout the cycle. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens next with Hilson.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see him back at FSU saying good things about the team that he just decommitted from. So we'll have to see with Hilson. I agree. I still kind of like Texas in that one. Now, let's stay in the trenches. Defensive lineman Isaiah Campbell, he reopened his recruitment when he was committed to the Clemson Tigers. Now, it seems like Tennessee might be the team to beat, but he also plays a premier position on that defensive line. So who's involved?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to good sources there just in the last 24 hours. I still think it's basically the same two schools, North Carolina and Tennessee. Some
Mm,
schools have reached out, but I think the family feels good about the relationships they have with the staff in the in-state school, Chapel Hill, and then obviously in Knoxville. He'll be back in Knoxville for the Tennessee-Alabama game for an official visit there, and that's the team I like right now, kind of setting the pace. The we talked about with Mario Nash. I mean, when he decommitted and coming off that Florida State visit, um, Isaiah Campbell did the same thing coming off a UNC
yeah.
unofficial visit. But I just like where Tennessee, the buzz has kind of been behind the scenes big about Tennessee, really going back to the spring and early summer when he made that decision. It's been consistent communication between Campbell, his family, and Rodney Garner, Josh Heupel. Tennessee is obviously off to a good start, coming off a tough loss, obviously, at Arkansas. But I think he likes the position room. He likes the position coach and Rodney Garner. And I see Tennessee right now as the team to beat.
Okay, keep an eye on it. See if he shows up in Knoxville this weekend. Big night game against Florida. We know it's going to be a big visit list. We'll see if he shows. Another defensive lineman on here, Stephon Shivers. Maybe he's not a decommit after all. We're going to put the tweet up here for some context, but he on Saturday morning said that he's reopening his recruitment from Georgia. He's been committed there for a while, but in the same breath, he says he's still committed. So, do you consider Stephon Shivers well, we know he's not a solid commitment if he is a commitment to Georgia, but do you consider him a Georgia commit at this time?
I don't even want to talk about it, Josh. I don't know any more than you do. No, I actually do think he is still committed. I think from reaching out and talking to him and his people, I think what he was trying to say there is he was going to listen to other schools, still
Mm-hmm.
communicate or open up, his ear to see who reaches out and what they have to say, potentially taking other visits. But yes, based on what I'm being told, I still consider Shivers a Georgia commit, and I still consider Shivers a Georgia target. So
Okay.
I do think other schools could potentially, get him on campus. He's going to listen, like he said, I think to other schools. But
Who do
look,
you think is maybe the team or teams that he like? Do you think that he just put this out there to spark interest in his recruitment, or do you think he put this out there because like he's been talking to some other teams and maybe wants to take some visits?
yeah, I think more of the first, what you said, that the first, as far as reach opening to kind of see maybe who is interested in him. Maybe let them know, hey, I'm not 100% locked in with George. The hot team around him has been Vanderbilt. He's obviously
Mm-hmm.
from Tennessee, from the area. Big win, obviously, on Saturday against Alabama. We'll see if he shows up in the 615 at some point this season. But look, D line, specifically that body type, 6'4, 6'5, 380. That is a need for Georgia in this class. They're
Need
missing
for
that guy
everybody.
right now this season. They play that 3-4. They need that nose guard, that zero tech. They don't have that right now, at
Yeah.
least not playing at this moment this season for Georgia. So I think he knows he's still a Georgia want and a Georgia need. So I see him as a Georgia commit and a Georgia target. Let's see what happens in the coming weeks.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of making some noise, wide receiver Malachi Tony, he had a couple big announcements in the past couple weeks. First, Malachi Tony announced that he was reclassifying. Now, he was committed to Miami Hurricanes, and he announced, I'm reclassifying from 26 up to 25. We've seen that happen before. Then he takes a visit to Alabama. Much like Mario Nash Jr., about 24 hours after that visit to Alabama, Malachi Tony announces that he's no longer committed to Miami. Chad, who are the teams involved? What are you hearing on Malachi Tony? And is there a chance he could end up on Miami's commit list once again?
Yeah, well, one thing I can say for sure is receiver is a big need for Miami in this class. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they now have one receiver committed. They're trying to get other guys and flip a guy like Joshua Moore from Florida or even Vernell Brown from Florida, Dallas Wilson from Oregon. They're trying to get even Jamie French still communication there a little bit with Miami as well. That's a position of need. So I do think they'll continue to recruit Malachi Tony right there in their backyard at American Heritage High School. But again, you have to look at Alabama as the now be the trending school, that the easy pick if there is one. But it's really been, on my end, pretty quiet about really where Malachi Tony is at. Basically, I'm hearing there's really no imminent commitment expected, but
Mm-hmm.
Malachi's never been one to talk a lot about his recruitment, to kind of share what he's thinking about the process. So we're trying to put some pieces together behind the scenes. But From what I've gathered, no visits are scheduled right now for Malachi Tony. He had a very good trip to Alabama for the Georgia game, decommitted shortly thereafter. So you have to like where Alabama's at right now. But from what I gather, there's really no expected decision here anytime soon. But again, he reclassifies, so we could see some official visits taken now in the coming
Yeah.
months before he makes that decision. We'll see what teams kind of pick up some steam there.
Yeah, well, there's only about 10 or 11 weeks until the early signing day, so you guys let us know. We gave you the decommits from the first month of the season. Let us know, who do you guys think could be the next round of decommitments? Any names out there that you're watching? Let us know. Comment section below.